Hello student, today we have to start from where we have left in last class, vegetative propagation by artificially manner. Vegetative propagation by artificially manner occurred by three types. First is grafting, second is cutting, and third is layering. Now in grafting process of artificially vegetative propagation, one stem is grafted on another stem. In this type of vegetative propagation, one stem stem of one plant grafted on stem of another plant. This will happen by this will happen. We will understand grafting by a diagram. This is the stem of one plant which is cut in a V shape. Cutting is occurred in this stem in a V shape, and another plant which is also called as mother plant, which is rooted already in soil, also cut in a V shape. This stem is called as scion, and this is called as stalk. Cutting is occurred in this manner so that both stems are fixed in each other. Grafting is found in mango, rose, etc. Now, importance of vegetative propagation. It is a very rapid process, so that plants produced by vegetative propagation take less time to grow and bear flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from seeds. Second importance is offspring produced are genetically identical. Offspring produced are genetically identical. Now, third importance is it is occurred by naturally and artificially. But there is one drawback also present in vegetative propagation, disadvantage of vegetative propagation. Disease can be easily transmitted. This is a drawback of vegetative propagation, that disease can be easily transmitted. Second type of reproduction is sexual reproduction. First of all, definition of sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction in which formation and fusion of gametes occur. In this Now after asexual reproduction, we are going to start next type of reproduction, which is sexual reproduction. First of all, definition of sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction in which formation and fusion of gametes occur. In which formation and fusion of gametes occur. Now, characteristic of sexual reproduction. So first characteristic is this reproduction involves two parents. So it is also called as biparental reproduction. It is also called as biparental reproduction because in this reproduction two parents are involved, while in asexual reproduction one parent is involved. So it is called as uniparental reproduction, and when we talk about sexual reproduction it is called as biparental reproduction. Now in sexual reproduction meiosis and mitosis both are involved. While in asexual reproduction only mitosis is involved. Meiosis is involved in sexual reproduction during gametogenesis. During gametogenesis, gametogenesis is a process of formation of gametes. Is a process of formation of gametes. While mitosis present after zygote formation. After zygote formation. And zygote formation is occurred after fertilization of gametes. Zygote formation is occurred after fertilization. So this is all about, this is introduction of sexual reproduction. Now we will study sexual reproduction in flowering plants. We have already studied about reproduction in flowering plant, but by the manner of asexual reproduction, which is occurred by vegetative propagation. Now when we talk about sexual reproduction in flowering plant, sexual reproduction in flowering plant is occurred by producing flowers, because flowers is a sexual part of flower is a reproductive part of flowering plants. Asexual reproduction occurred occurred in vegetative part, while sexual reproduction occurred in reproductive part, which is called as flower. Now we will study structure of flower by a diagram. Now this is the structure of flower, and they all are different parts of flower. First of all, flower attached with the main stem by a part which is called as stalk. So this part is called as stalk, and upper part of stalk is swollen, and it is called as thalamus. This part also called as receptacle. All part of plants are present on receptacle. Now this part of flower is called as sepals, and they are also called as calyx. And this colored part of plant called as corolla or petals. Now they all are accessory part of plant. Now come on essential part of plant, which are known as stamen and carpel. So there we will draw a diagram of stamen. This is a diagram of stamen. Now stamen consists of two parts. This tubular part is called as filament, and this part called as anther lobe. Now anther contains many pollen grains inside of it. Now after structure of stamen, we will draw structure of carpel. This is a male reproductive part of flower. Consists of two parts, filament, and anther contains many pollen grains. Stamen also called as androecium. After male reproductive part, we have next female reproductive part. Female reproductive part of flower called as carpel, pistil or gynoecium. It is consist of three parts, which is stigma, style and ovary, and inside the carpel ovule is present. Ovule is present, which is which is known as female gamete. Now they are three part of carpel. First is stigma. This one is this tubular structure is called as style, and this structure is called as ovary. And this inside the ovule is present. The structure of female reproductive part, which is called as carpel or gyne. So it's a female reproductive part of flower. It consists of stigma, style and ovary. And ovary contain ovule inside. Now we have studied structure of flower and essential part of flower like stamen and carpel, which are involved in sexual reproduction. Now after structure, we have next topic is pollination. Now definition of pollination. The transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of flower is known as pollination. In this process, transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma is occurred. Now pollination is of two types. First is self-pollination and second is cross-pollination. So we will study self-pollination and cross-pollination via diagram. Now these are two flowers and we will study pollination in these two flowers. First, when anther land to stigma, when pollen grain of anther land to stigma of same flower, this process called as self-pollination. When pollen grain of anther land to stigma of same flower, this process is called as self-pollination. But when pollen grain land to stigma from anther of one plant to stigma of different plant is called as cross-pollination. So in this self-pollination, in this process, pollen grain of same flower land to stigma of same flower. But in cross-pollination, pollen grain of one flower land to stigma of different flower of same plant or stigma of different flower of different plant. Now this is all about the pollination process. Now after pollination, we have next topic is fertilization. Now this is a process of fusion of male and female gametes. It is called as fertilization. As a result, zygote is formed. Now mechanism of fertilization. So during the pollination process, the male gametes reach the stigma and the fertilization takes place. Again we will draw a diagram. This is the female reproductive part which is called as carpel and this consists of three parts: stigma, style and ovary. And this is a female gamete which is called as ovule. Now the male reproductive part which is called as stamen. Now and stamen consists of two parts, filament and anther contains many pollen grains. Now in pollination process, pollen grain land from anther to stigma of same flower or different flower. Now when pollen grain reaches to stigma of flower. After that, a pollen tube is developed from the pollen grain. This is a pollen grain. Now, after the process of fertilization, a pollen tube is developed from a pollen grain. And with the help of this pollen tube, male gametes are reached to ovule and fertilization process is occurred. They are male gametes, and with the help of pollen tube they are able to reach to ovules and process of fertilization is occurred. Now after fertilization, zygote is formed, and this zygote undergoes a development, and after development it is zygote becomes an embryo. This embryo further undergoes in a development and becomes a seed. Now, so after fertilization, ovule becomes into a seed and ovary becomes into a fruit. Ovule becomes into a seed and ovary becomes into a fruit. So that ovary also called as a ripened fruit. Sorry, the fruit is also called as the ripened ovary. So that the fruit is also called as ripened ovary. So this is all about fertilization process, and their process of sexual reproduction is completed.